Woody Woodpecker is one of the most famous cartoons of all time.
Fro was right. I like.
That's exactly why. Did you know that the new movie featuring the character Woody Woodpecker, Camp Vacation, is packed with references to the character's old cartoons? Bowling ball. One of these references happens right at the beginning of the movie when the red-headed bird makes a wooden bowling ball and hits YouTuber Kyler, who's disturbing his peace in the middle of the forest. This scene is a clear reference to the episode Bowling Ball, released in 1956, where the tree that is home to Woody Woodpecker is turned into several bowling balls in a factory. And from then on, the bird turns the factory owner's life into a hell, in the classic Woody Woodpecker style, much like he did with poor Kyler. Certainly, not many people notice this reference, probably because it's quite old. But don't worry, we'll show you all 18 Easter eggs and references hidden in the new Woody Woodpecker movie now.
That is much better.
That's much better. Shh.
Classic opening. If there's one thing you can recognize from Woody Woodpecker, it's his laugh, and it became so famous because it was created for use in the cartoon's opening.
Guess who?
But it underwent some changes in 1951, and a new opening was created where the character carves his name with his beak on wood, along with his characteristic laugh created back in the day. And this has become undoubtedly the most famous introduction among the cartoon's versions, so much so that it was recreated in this new 2024 movie. It would be unthinkable to have a Woody Woodpecker movie or cartoon without this opening or the character's laugh, don't you think? Woohoo Camp! If we stop to analyze, there are some references to Woody Woodpecker's name within the movie itself. The camp's name itself is one of those references. Woohoo! Fridge! Another reference to the protagonist's name can be seen when Buzzard and Woody Woodpecker are having a duel of utensils in the kitchen. And notice that the fridge brand is S-Wood, another reference to the character's name and his favorite thing, wood. Chile Willie. Many people were intrigued by one of the wooden sculptures Woody Woodpecker created when he met Maggie. But those who are fans of old cartoons know very well who that penguin with red gloves is. He's none other than Chile Willie, one of the characters created by Walter Lantz, the same creator of Woody Woodpecker. He even had his own series and episodes broadcasted on television.
Not bad.
Condiment War. When the red-headed bird faces Buzzard in the hoo-ha camp kitchen, at one point he grabs two condiment bottles, one of ketchup and one of mustard. Except both are empty, and the scene seems to make no sense at all. And it indeed wouldn't make sense, but it's pretty obvious that it's an Easter egg from the 1999 series episode Condiment War, where Woody Woodpecker and Wally Walrus are competitors in hot dog sales. And they end up having a war using ketchup and mustard bottles. And if you're a fan of the red and blue feathered bird, comment down below, #Woody. Jumpsuit. Speaking of Wally Walrus, he's one of the most well-known characters from Woody Woodpecker and has been present since the first version of the crazy red-headed bird. And in the movie Camp Vacation, we can see that he's the camp inspector, which I honestly don't even know if it's a real job. But the fact is, if you look closely, you'll notice that underneath his work clothes, the character wears a kind of jumpsuit. This could be a reference to several episodes from the 1950s, where Wally Walrus sometimes wore jumpsuits as standard clothing. Notepad. In fact, the character has a part in another major reference from the cartoon. When Woody Woodpecker takes his notepad out of his inspector pocket, this scene strongly resembles the episode The Traffic Officer from the first version of The Crazy Bird, where he annoys a traffic cop who threatens to fine Woody Woodpecker for speeding in his car. Similar to what Wally Walrus does with the camp, applying multiple fines for infractions caused by Woody Woodpecker. Gold Rush. Throughout the movie, we find out that the ancestors of the two cousins, Zane and Angie, were gold prospectors and were named Obadiah. And he became rich after finding a lot of gold, and with that money, he bought the lands where the two camps are located today. This is a reference to the 1963 episode Gold Digging Woodpecker, where the red-headed bird himself goes west in search of riches, and he even finds some gold. Could this Woody Woodpecker from this episode be the ancestor of the character in the movie who helped make the Obadiah gold statue? And in the 1999 series, we see another episode called The Prospector, where the character tries to do this again.
Gold? I love gold.
Owl. And we find another reference to that same classic Woody Woodpecker episode from 1963, The Gold Rush. When the character stops to ask for directions, he encounters an owl, but he ends up having a disagreement with her and getting beaten up. In the movie, there's a character, Mickey, who loves birds and studies them a lot. And if you look closely at the buttons the boy wears, you'll notice that one of them near his shoulder has a drawing exactly of the same owl Woody Woodpecker meets in the gold digging episode. Buzzard. When the villain of the cartoon, Buzzard, infiltrates the hoo-ha camp, he poses as a cook, and we see him wearing an outfit that is typical of the character from one of the old episodes of the cartoon, with a hat and a stained white apron. In the episode Chile Willie, this is exactly the same outfit the villain wears in the end, when he finally manages to grab Woody Woodpecker's coin, who also finally manages to have his ice cream. Original Woody. When the protagonist moves temporarily to the camp, we see him coming out of the shower, and when he comes out, we can see him push his hair back. At this moment, we can notice that it might be a quick reference to the original design of the character released in 1940, when Woody Woodpecker's head feathers were pushed back. Starting from 1951, the character gained his famous forward tuft, which lasted until 1999, when a new version of the cartoon was released, making his hair push back again. But in 2017, the character returned to his tufted design, which I'll confess is also my favorite. If you've made it this far, you're definitely a fan of cartoons, so subscribe to the channel to not miss our next videos, okay? Green Woody. In one of the scenes from the movie Camp Vacation, we see that for a brief moment Woody Woodpecker turns green. This scene strongly resembles one of the most famous episodes from the classic series called His Better Elf, released in 1958. In it, we meet Woody Woodpecker's elf version, who helps him fulfill all his wishes, but for each thing he gets for Woody Woodpecker, something terrible happens to him too. Seriously, this is one of the best Woody Woodpecker episodes I've ever watched. Crooked Beak. In some of the movie scenes, we see the red-headed bird with his beak crooked for different reasons. This is more or less what happens to Woody Woodpecker several times in different episodes of his classic series, like in the episode Born to Peck from 1952, where we see him as an old man with a crooked beak from pecking his whole life. But at least he managed to find the fountain of youth in the end and renewed his strength, which makes sense since he was born in 1940 and must be almost 100 years old. Living Saw. When Woody Woodpecker and Buzzard fight for the first time and destroy the hoo-ha camp game room, the crazy bird turns on a chainsaw that practically comes to life. This scene has a huge reference to the episode Sawmill Operation, where exactly the two characters work in a sawmill. But as always, they don't get along, and at one point Woody Woodpecker releases a saw that also seems to have a life of its own, just as it ends up happening in the movie. This is definitely a reference that older fans will remember. Corn. If there's one thing the crazy bird likes to do, it's eating a lot, as we can notice in the movie and all his animated series too. And when Woody Woodpecker picks up and eats a cob and ends up throwing several corns in the boy's face, fans of the red-headed cartoons definitely remembered the episode The Screwball from 1951, where Woody Woodpecker doesn't work but always ends up stealing food from all the other animals. Which leaves everyone completely furious. Were they the same animals who signed the petition to kick the bird out of the forest reserve? After all, we can see that Woody Woodpecker's teamwork problem is much older than it seems. Frozen bird. And when Buzzard locks Woody Woodpecker in the fridge, he tries to get out but isn't successful and ends up kind of freezing. This is a clear reference to the episode Skin Folks, where the protagonist is almost frozen when he remembers he has an uncle who is very rich, but at the same time is a big miser. And in the end, he ends up being kicked out of the house just because he put too much sugar in the old man's tea and was a spendthrift. Wilderness Games. Surely the name of the games played between the two summer camps was slightly inspired by another franchise of movies that everyone knows very well. After all, Wilderness Games looks a lot like the Hunger Games. In fact, coincidentally, Katniss's symbol is a bird, only a mockingjay and not a woodpecker. But it would be pretty cool if it were, don't you think? That would certainly put Woody Woodpecker on another level. The video may be ending, but it doesn't mean you have to stop watching quality videos. Just choose one of these two videos that are popping up now for you and click so you can keep up with us. See you in the next video. Thanks!